Hello everybody, welcome to this week's live stream. If you haven't attended one of these before, I normally run them every Friday, and the way it works is we'll have a look at the major announcements for next week in markets. We'll take a look then at the major markets, what's been going on, indices, FX, gold, oil, commodities, a little bit of everything. And then if there's any stuff you want looking at, if you put it in the chat, we'll take a look at it there. This is the last live stream I'll be doing for 4 weeks. I'm not going to be around in the upcoming Fridays, so I'll be back in the middle of June. I think it will be, but more of that as we go through. Really interesting week. All-time highs in US indices, S&P, Nasdaq, Dow Jones. Big moves there. Silver today is bursting out to its best levels since, where we go back to? I'm going to go back to here. Feb 2013. So what's that? 11-year highs for silver, moving through $30 an ounce. So some big moves going on there. We've had all the meme stock nonsense again this week, haven't we? The return of GameStop this week. Crazy move. Oh, lo and behold, who'd have thought that? We're all the way back to where we nearly were last Friday. What a surprise. But some crazy moves there. So lots to go through this week. So let's get into it. So as usual, let's just go through some housekeeping before we do it. This presentation is only for educational purposes. It does not contain and should not be construed as containing investment advice or an investment recommendation or an offer of or solicitation for a transaction in any financial instrument. David Jones accepts no responsibility for any use that may be made of these comments and for any consequences that result. You should consider whether you understand how spread bets, CFDs, futures, foreign exchange work, and whether you can afford to take the high risk of losing your money. Trading is risky. I did a webinar at the beginning of this month on day trading, the approach I use for day trading. I did it on Wednesday, 1st of May. Day trading US indices, Dow, S&P, and the Nasdaq. I talked about how I plan the trade, what I look for before the market opens, what's important and what's not. I think you can boil it down to a few important things for me when I'm planning trades on US indices, why people lose and taking profits. So I ran that at the beginning of the month. It was just for people in the WhatsApp group. It ran for just under an hour. If you'd like a recording to watch the recording of that, you can do that. You need to join the WhatsApp group to do it. I'll give you details as we go through, but you can join the WhatsApp group for a month and I'll give you the link to the recording of that, and you get a discount for the first month of the WhatsApp group. So I'm not going to be here for 4 weeks, so if you want to fill the gap, join the WhatsApp group. The WhatsApp group carries on as normal, even though I'm not here. You can access that webinar. But anyway, looking ahead to next week, it's been a busy week this week. You know, US inflation data has been out this week, plenty of volatility off that. A bit of a quieter week next week, but we do still have UK inflation data on Wednesday of next week. I think that will be closely watched and we could see some volatility there. And also on Thursday, we've got US manufacturing PMI, which again, I think could be a volatile one. So for me, those are the two things to watch next week. You know, but we're ending this week. Stock markets really buoyant. You know, risk has definitely come back on this week. Is it going to last? Let's see. But those are the two big things to watch for next week. So I run this WhatsApp group. It's a daily update from me, or 2 updates actually a day. What am I looking at in the mornings? A whole host of markets I go through, markets I'm watching, what trades I'm running. I've got one, I'm long the Australian stock market index at the moment. I went long the DAX about half an hour ago, the German market. So I'll talk about that in the group. A Q&A, any questions, people can fire them in throughout the day. And if you sign up, if you go to the website, all the links are in the description down below. Go to the website, davidjonestrading.co.uk, go to subscribe, and you can join the WhatsApp group here, put in the code YouTube, and you get 20% off the first month, and you get access to that webinar, the recording of the webinar. And there'll be more webinars to come. I'm doing more webinars for the WhatsApp subscribers in in June, towards the end of June as well. But all the stuff is in the description down below. There's a snapshot of the sort of thing I talk about in the daily updates every day. I run a trading course as well, details on the website, 5-star Trustpilot reviews. I send a newsletter out normally every week. Didn't send it out last week. I will send one out this weekend. That's free. If you go to the website, davidjonestrading.co.uk, you can sign up on the first page, I think, for that. Otherwise, that's it. Let's take a look. So that's the webinar again. But let's take a look at the markets and stuff. So it's been a really interesting week this week. We'll start off with stock markets. There's the S&P. Let's delete these lines. We'll start off with a clean sheet of paper. You know, we had this big sell-off in April. We saw the S&P hit fresh all-time highs beginning of April. Sells off all the way through April. US markets so dropped. What did it drop? 52.80 to about 49.20. So dropped 360 points, something like that, 6-7% in April. We've seen the bounce back, and on Wednesday hit fresh all-time highs again. So anybody who's ever bought the S&P at any point in its history and still holds it was showing a profit as of Wednesday. You know, and a break to all-time highs, it is a pretty major thing. You know, the last time the S&P set fresh all-time highs after a sell-off was at the beginning of this year in Jan, and we saw the market move higher. You know, what does this mean? Does this mean we're going to guarantee to get further gains? Of course not, because there are no guarantees in financial markets, but it does suggest that investors are still bullish. You know, so for me, I am very much buy the dip on these US markets for now. I think it'd be interesting if we get a bit of a deeper sell-off. This is the hourly chart now. If you get a deeper sell-off in the S&P, perhaps next week, where does the sell-off stop? But, you know, that move in the S&P is bullish. The trend is still up. If you go back to October 22 levels, I think it is. That low, whenever it was. I can't even get it. Oh, I can't even pick it up. Anyway, you know, the trend, it has accelerated away from the trend, absolutely. You know, but the big trend is still up. Fresh all-time highs this week. Yeah, that's it. It's all still pretty bullish. Nasdaq, same sort of thing. The Nasdaq highs in March, the market sold off. Holds around 17,000, and here we are at 18.5. So still positive. I think there could be an opportunity today if we get perhaps a deeper dip in these indices today to be a buyer. But you know, you can't argue with the trend as usual in these markets. So look at the Dow. The same thing in the Dow. Let's get rid of all that stuff. So again, the all-time high for the Dow was, before this, just shy of 40,000, and the market did tickle through 40,000 yesterday. So it got as high as 40,055 yesterday. So you know, really, really bullish markets. That's it, really, isn't it? You know, these markets are still strong. I'm still buying the dips. That's it. The Russell, the smaller cap US index, you know, that has rallied. You know, we're way off all-time highs in the Russell index in the States. They were back in November 21. You know, we're about 20%, 15% below those. A long way to go there. But again, you know, obviously we've seen this market recover over the last 3-4 weeks or so. So that looks positive. The Japan index has been a bit quieter than Nikkei. You know, this is with the all-time high in the Nikkei in March. Sells off, but the trend is still up since October last year. Bang, bang, bang. So the Nikkei still looks positive. The DAX, the German market, all-time highs again earlier this week in the DAX. I bought today. The market had sold off from all-time highs, was holding above that spike low. That was from the US inflation data on Tuesday of this week. So I bought in there, just wondering if this market's going to carry on higher next week. I thought it was a fair enough trade. So that was all pretty positive. The FTSE, even the FTSE, the boring UK stock market, has had, you know, quite the run. You know, broke out through the previous all-time high, did that during April, and has gone up another 5% since then. You know, so the trend on the FTSE, you know, it is a funny old market, the FTSE. That's the last, 7-8 years or so. very different to US markets, but the trend absolutely still up. The Italian market's been a good performer as well. It's a great run in the Italian market, all-time highs on that this week. Hong Kong market has been in a downtrend since at least here, Jan 23. So last year, when other markets were going up, the Hong Kong Hang Seng going down. That's broken out of its downtrend. We could even take the downtrend back to here, or even back up to here, Jan 2018. Anyway, strong market there. The China 50, another market that had been in a downtrend, rallied, faffed around a bit, but again, the Chinese market today hitting its best levels since September 2023. So lots of strength in stock markets at the moment. Really interesting to see where they all go next. If we get a sell-off, which of course we will along the way, how deep do the sell-offs go? If you look at something like the S&P on the hourlies, before the inflation data, the market was about 1% below where we are now. So, a sell-off back towards the Tuesday, Wednesday lows is not that much of a sell-off, really. So for me, I'd absolutely be buying the dips in these markets. So loads going on with stock markets at the moment, all still really strong. Let's see where it all ends. So that's it. Good week for stock markets. Let's take a look at some other stuff. The dollar index. I got stopped out this week at dollar index. I might have placed my stop a little bit too tight, to be honest, but there you go, the trade's done. But the dollar index has sold off from these highs, these early May highs, 106.50, dropped almost a couple of hundred points. But what's interesting, over the last couple of days, we've had this trend since the end of December in the dollar index, bang, bang, bang. We've come back to the trend and we've held. So for me, assuming it closes positive today, and so far it looks like it should do. Let's see where it ends the day up. It looks a contender for a bit more of a bounce next week, assuming that trend is going to continue. So for me, if I was looking at targets for the dollar index from where we are now, the logical place to have a target is a run back to the old highs. So about a couple of hundred points higher than where we are now. This is on the daily chart. So let's see how that works out. And of course, moves in the dollar affect everything else as well. So if you look at pound against the dollar, the pound had been sliding since March. So we're 2 months into that slide. We had the rally over the last couple of weeks. It's with the dollar weakness. And it's interesting, that we have seen so far at least the pound rally stop ahead of those highs from early April, which for me were quite major highs on the daily chart just before the market plunged 400, 300 points or so, whatever it was. Similar moves in the euro. The euro has been in a downtrend. If I adjusted that, what does that look like? Hold on a second. If we pick it up with these highs, if we say our downtrend in the euro looks something like that, the euro's rally back up, and again, these highs from early April have been a problem. So a very interesting week next week, I think, for the dollar and stuff quoted against it, the euro and the pound being the two we've looked at there. If we take a look at Bitcoin, while we're on the subject of currencies, pretty boring. It's trading now where it was a couple of months ago. The trend is up. The big trend on Bitcoin is absolutely still up. But it's just a bit drifty at the moment. So for me, I still buy the dip. If I was a buyer at the moment, the closest I'd have my stop is the other side of 56,000. But a bit boring, I think, Bitcoin. But the dollar next week, I think, is a really interesting market to watch. If we have a look at gold and silver, there's gold. Gold's had a good run this week. There we go. If we go back to 2 weeks ago, actually, the 3rd of May, this trend has continued. We saw fresh highs for the trend hit yesterday. The market sells off, and bang, we've moved out to fresh highs again for this trend today. So that trend in gold still positive. I'd still be a buyer of the dips on gold. I think we need to. What's going to be interesting, I think, next week for gold are these all-time highs again. Which were only set in the last month or so, but all-time highs around $2,430 for gold. Interesting to see what happens. Does it break out next week? Let's see. But for now, the trend is still up, so I'd still be a buyer of the dip in gold on that sort of shorter term time frame. And silver, of course, the market that has broken out. Here we are. Look at that. $30 plus for silver. So you can see just what a barrier this $30 mark has been going back to August 2020. So almost 4 years. You know, $30 has been a ceiling for the price of silver, but not so far today. So I think that's another interesting market to watch next week. What does it mean? Is this the start of the next big bull run in silver? Or actually, is it going to be a false break? And we're going to see silver drop back into the mid-20s? Who knows? Let's see where it's trading next week and see what happens. But I think, you know, that's a notable move today in the price of silver. If I was trying to buy the breakout, I don't think I'd buy it now. I'd wait for things to settle, see where it's trading next week, see what happens. But yeah, a really interesting move today in silver. While we're on the subject of metals, you know, copper has had a good run over the last, 3 months or so. And again, very briefly, all-time highs on copper this week, up above 5, and a strong day today. So that's another interesting market, you know, breaking out through some really big levels, copper. These old highs just above 5. You know, what happens with that next week? You know, are we going to see this market start to power a bit higher? So I think that's really interesting. One market that hasn't been interesting, and I've been waiting for the rally here, is oil. So on the daily charts, you know, we've had this trend in oil since mid-December. So we're 6 months into that, 5 months into that, whatever it is. But it's not done much. You can see these are the daily charts, the daily candles. Not done much over the last, is it a month? No, a few weeks, couple of weeks. I'm still expecting the bounce in oil. If I was a buyer, I'd be stopped the other side of at least 75.50. So let's see. But pretty dull. If you switch it over to the hourlies, there we go. That's been the last, is it the last week? The last week or so for oil has been pretty flat overall, as you can see. Let's see, but the big trend is up. What has been exciting again, though, natural gas. The crazy market comes back to life. So we had, I mentioned it on the WhatsApp group this week, you know, it had been sideways for the last few months. And we had, let's call it 2, was something of a ceiling for the oil price, you know, but the natural gas price. But this week, we did get the breakout, or not this week, hang on, when was it? 6th of May. So a week last Monday. And it has just continued. There we go. And this is where we are at 246 on natural gas at the moment. So we've seen a 20% move since the breakout. We have these old highs at 261, so about 15 cents higher than where we are now. The old highs coming in. Let's see what happens. But still strong. Trend is still up. You know, when it sells off, we see the buyers step back in. So that's going to be an interesting one to watch next week to see what happens if it does push up near 261-ish. Yeah, so this trend in natural gas is still strong. Cocoa was the previous crazy market of the year. Absolutely crazy moves in cocoa. Came into 2024 trading around about 4,000, surged through 12,000 in April, and here we are back at 7.5 for cocoa. Interesting to see what happens down here. You know, if we see this 7.2 level get broken, are we going to see a much bigger sell-off? It's been a quiet couple of days, but I think that's an interesting market to watch next week. And sticking with agricultural commodities, orange juice. Orange juice, which was I think last year's crazy market. So orange juice last year went from about 209 beginning of Jan, touched 420 and a bit more by October, and then sold off really hard from November into Jan. And here we are again, back up again. I was not expecting that. So another one breaking out to, or has broken out today to fresh all-time highs. Is it a real breakout? Is it a false break? Let's see. Let's see what happens. So, you know, so much going on with markets at the moment. And that's it. That's it really. You know, but loads to watch next week. For me, you know, the big focus remains stock markets, just because, you know, they've broken out again to fresh all-time highs. So that's interesting. This dollar index is interesting because we're back to the trend. Silver is interesting. I must admit, I'm leaning towards not believing the break because it's silver, but let's see what happens. So plenty to watch next week. So a real mix of things, I think, to keep an eye on. But like I say, I won't be here for the next few weeks. But if you join the WhatsApp group continues as usual, and you get access to this webinar, which is well worth more than 1 month subscription to the WhatsApp group. So if you go to the website and use the code YouTube, you can sign up for a month, and I'll send you the link to the recording of that. Okay, now let's take a look at some of the stuff you want looking at. Actually, I should mention the meme stock, shouldn't I? So the GameStop, I mean, I didn't think it was going to last. It lasted a bit longer than I thought it would. But GameStop, if you remember, if you've been around long enough, you remember the meme stock mania from early 2021. GameStop was the big one that drove it all. So GameStop stock from then went from $10, touched 120, and then, of course, did nothing for years. Anyway, this week, it woke up again because the YouTube account Roaring Kitty tweeted something over the weekend about GameStop. So on Monday, that's Monday, so they closed at, where did they close on Friday? So they closed at 17.40 on Friday. They touched 38 on Monday. I thought that was it. You know, I said in the WhatsApp group, look, I wouldn't go short, but that would be the trade I would do, but it's too volatile for me. Next day, they touch 64, 65 the next day, close at 48. So that's Tuesday, and then bang, 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 and here we are back at 20. Not surprising at all. I bet loads of people have bought that. I think that's over and done now. I think it's different. It feels like completely driven by that tweet this week. So a bit of a short squeeze. Who knows? I'm not saying it can't go back to 65. I'd just be very surprised if it did. AMC was the other one, another meme stock from back in the day. Oh, I mean, look at that. Touched 12-ish, and here we are down around $4.50. You know, but yeah, an interesting week to watch these from the sidelines. But I think a lot of diamond hands perhaps are going to get burnt, or will be sitting with sore diamond hands if they bought into some of this nutcase activity this week. Let's see. Maybe when I come back, it will be $200 a share, and I'll have to eat my words. But the price action does not look too good over the last few days. Anyway, let's take a look at some of the stuff you want looking at. Hello, Kev. Platinum and nickel. Yeah, platinum was breaking out as well, I think. There we go, look at that. All these metals are all going a bit crazy. I mean, platinum, it's a difficult one for me. I mean, something like copper is more obvious because we had the trend building up to the breakout, didn't we? Platinum had been boring, you know, and pretty sideways since August last year. You know, couldn't really get through $1,000, blah, blah, blah. And here we are today at 1,063. So what do you think? What do you do? You know, in the great scheme of things, it's still pretty sideways. Yeah, so it could run higher. If I was looking at it in the shorter term time frame, I would buy the dip and I'd have a stop at least the other side of 1,040, if not the other side of $1,000. So yeah, perhaps it could push a bit higher next week, but it's been sideways for so long. Does this really change much? I would say not at the moment, although it has had a big move, you know, and we're back to a 12-month high on platinum. So a trickier one to call for me, that one, platinum versus anything else. Nickel, I do have nickel in the watch list. This does look like, we must have looked at this before because I've got the line drawn on there. This does look like this, you know, over the course of this year, it's reversed that big downtrend. You know, we do have, for me, this is the new trend. Again, it's a tricky one for me to trade because the thing has run away, you know, but that's the trend in nickel for me, and it has accelerated. So big gap higher today. So what would it do today? Oh, where would you buy it? So where would you put your stop today? Let me think. If I was a buyer, what would I do? I would probably want my stop the other side of, is it 2,000 or 20,000? 20,000. The other side of which is only near yesterday's highs. So if I thought it was going to absolutely race away that would be the trade I'd do. I'd rather wait as usual to buy the dip, see if we get a pullback towards 20,000. But again, that's really interesting. That daily chart. Where was it up here? So that was 2022. It was about 32,000, something like that. So that does look like we've had this recovery going on, and it's really popped overnight. What's been the reason for it? New Caledonia, unrest in New Caledonia. I don't even know where New Caledonia is. French ruled Pacific Islands accounts for 6% of global mine nickel, blah, 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 blah. Okay, I'd be inclined to think maybe, has it overreacted a bit to that news? Do we get perhaps a bit more calmer heads prevail next week and get an opportunity to buy the dip? But that's a really interesting market to watch, I think, next week, nickel. So for me, I wouldn't be a buyer here. The risk is I miss out and the market goes running away without me. But interesting to see. Very much news driven today. Do we see it trickle back a bit next week and there's a buying opportunity? And then I think it starts to look interesting. And based off the dailies, I'd want my stop the other side of 18,500. But yeah, let's keep an eye on that next week and see what it does. I'll pay a bit more attention for the WhatsApp group next week and mention it in there. Can we have a look at aluminum? I'm guessing that's had a bit of a move. Oh no, not really. What do you think? I would go short. It's pretty sideways. It had a go at the old highs from Jan 23. It hasn't got through. I'd be tempted to go short with a stop above 2.7 because it's all a bit sideways, isn't it? If it breaks, then it gets a bit more interesting. But for me, yeah, not too exciting. What's the news there? 2-year high, blah, blah, blah. It's all about nickel news, isn't it? So yeah, not really exciting for me. CCT, Character Group. Is that the UK stock? Is that the one you mean? I would be a seller. I think, it's had a bit of a move today or this week. Oh, what's that stupid line? I would take the view that I've lost all my lines now. I'd take the view the trend is still down, I think on those. Oh, I can remember these from years and years ago. Didn't they? Is it Peppa Pig or something like that? Or am I getting confused with something else? I can't remember. But whatever. So for me, the trend is still down. So I would still be a little bit patient on that one. It looks a little bit thinly traded as well. Imperial Brands. I was looking at those today, actually, Imperial Brands. I think these are interesting. The old, it's the old Imperial Tobacco. So the old cigarette companies. Good yield. It's had a move this week. Is that on results? Yes. I would like, because if you look at this big trend, I have owned these in the past in my ISA. So the old physical shares, I've definitely owned it because they were a great success story on the way up. And then they come all the way down again. So for me, I would be a buyer. The question as usual is where does the stop go? It had been recovering. Looking at something like that. It's had a little bit of a fallout. You could argue that trend is still up. I would be a buyer. I would want, though, from a more medium-term point of view, a stop the other side of 1640. So I'd be tempted to, again, see, do we get a bit of a dip? After this earnings blip higher, do we get a bit of a dip? So, yeah, I'd be a buyer, but I'd want to be a bit more patient with that one. BTA looks like a dog to me. British Telecom. Oh, no, God, what's that done? I wouldn't want to chase it. They've clearly had great earnings, haven't they? Okay. But for me, look at the big trend on British Telecom. BT is down. You could make the argument, okay, is it making a base down here? Right, we've got these old lows from way back in, 2020, down around 94, 95. We've seen the surge on earnings. Again, what would I do? I wouldn't do anything. Because for me, the trend is down. That big trend is down. Has it really broken this downtrend? I would be a bit skeptical. I'd be tempted to go short. That's what I'd be tempted to do. If it calms down a bit, that could be a short for me on Monday with a stop above 140. So I do like that you do get, overreactions in both ways to earnings. And I think with the trend being down, all right, it's jumped higher, but I think sort of so what? is it just an overreaction? Let's see. It'd be interesting to come back to it in about a month's time. But I wouldn't, personally, I wouldn't want to be chasing it here. So, yeah, let's see. Let's see what happens. And DKNG, DraftKings. We looked at those the other week, didn't we? I was saying buy, wasn't I? I think it's still a, it's still a buy to me. Again, it's just, do you wait for the pullback, or do you just buy them now? The trend has been up since early 2023. If I was a buyer now, I'd probably rather wait for a dip. But the closest I want my stop, the other side of that low, whatever that low is, $39. So for me, that's a buy because the trend is up. And I do trade. I think you are in the WhatsApp group, aren't you? So I do trade a lot of US stocks. And for me, the criteria is the trend has got to be up. So I do like that sort of stock. Is a good one for me. I'm trying to just see what else is moving today. What's my big winner? Boston Sciences, isn't it? For what I'm interested in is buying into things that are trending higher and having the opportunity to buy back in. So DraftKings is an interesting one, I think, but I'd probably rather buy a dip if they are going to dip. But that looks good. So we looked at aluminium. GameStop after hours was 80. Was that early in the week? Fair enough. Yeah, that really has been clobbered, hasn't it? Aluminium. Yeah, we did look at aluminium, didn't I? What did I say about aluminium? I've forgotten already. Yeah, go short. Unless it breaks that big level. How is the YouTube trading account going? You didn't look at it for some time. No, it's all closed out. Hold on a second. I closed all those trades. I need to start doing it again. But all those trades we were in last year, I'll show you now. Hold on a second. I'll open it up. They all did really well. All the stock trades we were in. But I've come out of all of them. They all got trailing stopped out. So for those of you who've been here a while, let me show you. It was behind one of my reasons to trade more stocks this year. So that's the last, however many, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 that got closed out. There you go. So you can see FedEx came out of that, Palantir. Dell was a big winner. Came out of that the 1st of March. 810. That was a really good trade, that Dell trade. I think that was an overreaction to earnings trade, Dell. I think they've moved higher since though. There you go. I came out beginning of March here. But I think we bought in back in November on that YouTube account. So yeah, some really good winning trades that were placed during the live streams. CrowdStrike came out of that eventually. So yeah, loads of winners. So I will get back into the swing of trading on these things, on these live streams again, because it's always good fun, and it did all make money. So I'll start that again when I come back in 4 weeks' time. We'll start doing all that again. Snapchat, Snap, isn't it? Is the company Snap Inc. Oof, that is crazy, isn't it? What would you do? What would you do? I would probably go short Snapchat. It's all been a bit sideways. It had a bit of a run up to $18, fell off a cliff on earnings, gapped higher on earnings. I would probably go short. So for me, there's no real trend. It's all a bit sideways. We have this. These are big swings, aren't they? These are 100% plus swings, big moves. It is too volatile for me, really. But yeah, I would be tempted to go short with a stop at 19 or something like that on the old Snapchat. Prudential, this is an interesting one, Prudential. I think this is another one that is this turning the corner. Oh no, it's not turning the corner, it's just going up, isn't it? Is that the right, no, that's the US stock. Hold on a second, let's get the UK stock, if you mean the UK stock. That's it, yeah. Oh, that's it. Oh, I remember it, someone asked about it yesterday. I would go short. We've had this trend that's been down since last year. All right, it's broken the downtrend over the last week or so. So what, is what I say. For me, the trend is still down. I would be tempted to go short with a stop above probably 880. This is another interesting one that, is it starting to turn around, or actually is what we're going to see is just blah, 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 and back we go. So for me, I never believe the first breakout like that move. So I'm always thinking, no, the trend's not ending. I want to go short. If it starts trading through 860, 880, I changed my mind. But let's see. There's another. So for me, I think the risk is it's going to just drift back to the lows again. So that would be the trade I would be thinking about. And I'd change my mind if it went through 880. There was one I looked for this week for my SIP, for my pension. I was thinking about buying. A similar sort of thing, but the other way around. Let me show you. I've not done anything with it yet. Oh, if I can find it. Hang on a second. But the same thing, just the mirror image of it. So it looks like that. So TBC Bank, so UK traded stock, great trend, had a reaction to earnings, and I thought, is that an overreaction? I don't believe the break of the trend line. I want to be a buyer, So if I could draw the trend line, it would look something like that, like this. So I don't believe the first break, and I want to be a buyer. So I thought that was interesting. And Prudential for me is a bit the mirror image of that Scottish Mortgage Trust, SMT. Scottish Mortgage Trust. That one? That looks all right, doesn't it? That looks interesting, doesn't it? That's been having a good little recovery for a bit. If I was a buyer, I would absolutely be stops at least the other side of £8 on those. I'd rather buy the pullback as usual. But that absolutely, how long has that trend been going for? October last year. That looks like it's turned the corner, isn't it? So I'd rather buy a dip on that. So yeah. Can we have a look at NWG? NWG, NatWest Group. They're doing a share offering, aren't they? NatWest, I think. That has done, that's the New York Stock Exchange. Let's look at it in London. NatWest Group. Why is it in London? I can never remember. Oh, it's NatWest Group. There we go. That one there, isn't it? That's done incredibly well, isn't it? Who'd have thought? A UK bank. I mean, that has done... Because I would have been short in here. I would have to change my mind here. And here we are at the highest levels since January 2018. 6-year highs on NatWest. The trend is up, so I would have to buy the dip on NatWest. The risk is that the dip doesn't come. But for me, I'd be a buyer of the dip. The closest I'd want my stop is probably the other side of £3 on NatWest, which is not ridiculous. They're 321 at the moment, But that looks that's done amazingly well, hasn't it? The old NatWest. Yes, so I'd rather buy the dip, but I would absolutely have been wrong-footed on that first time round. I think you've asked about that before, and I would have been the wrong way around on that. I was not wrong about Sony. Okay, what did you say about Sony? I can't even remember, but all right, I don't know. I don't know what you said, but I mean, for me, I'd go short Sony now. It gapped lower. It's gapped lower here. It's rallied on earnings, and it's bounced back a bit. So yeah, I think I'd be quite tempted to go short with a stop above 87 or something like that. And I think that's it, isn't it? I think we're done. If there are no more questions, so like I say, there'll be nothing from me on YouTube for about 4 weeks now. But if you're in the WhatsApp group, if you're not in the WhatsApp group, you can join. Use the code YouTube, and you get access to that webinar I did on day trading. I'll send you access to that as soon as you sign up. Go to their website to find out more about that. Lots to watch next week. We've got these stock markets at all-time highs. The dollar may be turning around. Orange juice at all-time highs. There's a load going on. So I'll be back at some point in June. So make sure you're subscribed to the YouTube channel, and we'll do all of this again. But until then, good luck with your trading. Don't blow your accounts up in the next 4 weeks, and let's see where we are in June. Okay, good luck with it all, and thanks for coming today, and see you next time around.